Aiden, you're not going to believe what I just read about. My husband, Exie, was standing in front of our kitchen, Western horseman in his well-worn hands. I dried my hands on a dish towel and turned to listen. The excitement in his voice bounced around the room. It's a new competition in Fort Worth to promote Mustangs called Extreme Mustang Makeover. I knew there was no way he was not going to be involved. Exie loves doing anything off the back of a horse, and he's really, really good at it. So when we adopted wild Mustangs to keep them out of the hands of a killer buyer, people kept asking, well, what does he do with them? I kept replying, he doesn't do anything, he just lets them be. I jokingly called them moving statuary, until Exie told me it sounded disrespectful to the horses. The competition pairs you with a wild horse. You pick it up and have 90 days to train and tame the beast. Unfortunately, we could not use any already out in pasture. Now let me explain a bit of our complicated life. We don't have much fun. Don't get me wrong, we have fun, but it's just the simple, everyday kind of fun. Once or twice a year, I'm in cancer treatment or off having surgery. So our life in the interim isn't jetting off to Paris or even motoring to Montana. Every big-ass decision we weigh is wedged between what medical drama is looming in the near distance. So typically, this decision of his was fraught from drama from the get-go. And getting the horse was a logistical squeeze between another surgery and recovery. Exie's dad, nicknamed B, also a lover of all things horse, made plans to fly from Santa Fe and ride with Exie to Fort Worth for the competition. I'd follow a day later with a girlfriend. Afterwards, we'd put B on a plane from Dallas. This would be a father-son bonding experience. When Exie unloaded the big, beautiful, muscular horse, I named him Othello on the spot. Little did I realize how apt that was. To say this horse had trust issues is putting it mildly. You couldn't get near him. His sole interest in life was to kill my husband, which he nearly did several times. Every few hours, I'd walk across the street and peer into the working corrals just to make sure Exie was still on his feet. They were two old, stubborn warriors, circling each other warily. Finally, by living in the corral 24/7, did I mention this was the summer when the horseflies and mosquitoes and gnats were at their worst? Exie was able to begin training. Time was coming down to the wire. B arrived the week we were to leave. Now's the time to mention that B, God love him, is also high maintenance. At that time, he was 88, deaf as a post, even with his hearing aids on. His wife had recently left him at age 90, explaining that she didn't have much time left and wanted to enjoy life. Tuesday afternoon, B discovers his wallet missing. After thorough searches of the house, guest room, his clothes, the truck, car, and the driveway, we realized B's lost wallet could be a very bad thing. In this post-9/11 world, there is no way B can board a plane without an ID. Last he remembers, he had it at security in Albuquerque. Here's what he had in his wallet: $400 cash, credit cards, driver's license, several blank checks, his VA card, and his Social Security card. A thief's bonanza. A charge has been made on one card for gas. B still doesn't comprehend the wallet has been stolen. When things begin to get more complicated with money matters, I'm right there with B. So Exie takes over, spending hours making rounds of calls. Credit companies, the bank manager, Social Security offices, credit unions. Between answering and re-answering and answering again B's interminable questions, waiting endlessly on hold, being transferred wrong again and again, trying to find the right numbers, the right people. Honestly, I marveled at his patience and would have understood completely if he had a meltdown. Now we had 2 precious days left and dozens of chores to do before leaving. Instead, we are suspended in this fresh hell, trying to calm B down. I start to worry we will be driving him home. Maybe he can board a bus? No, we can't do that. No knowing where he'd end up. A neighbor breaks into his house and looks for some ID to be sent FedEx so he can get a photo ID. He doesn't have a valid passport. Because Exie has to leave early on Thursday, B must now ride in my tiny car with Carol and me. Thursday morning, Exie leaves with Othello in the trailer. FedEx delivers and Carol arrives. She volunteers to take B to the DMV so I can clean the house for the sitter. B asks if he needs to take the materials from the FedEx. It takes 3 hours to get his license. It had to be approved, and apparently those people were in meetings. To make room for a 6-foot, 4-inch man in the back seat of my car, an insulated chest, trash can, and container holding wipes, paper towels, flashlights, and other items must be removed. Later down the road, as any of these things become necessary, Carol tells me that whenever she travels, she has insert necessary item here. And I realize we have taken off without the folding chairs, ice chest, and other necessities for the exhibition. 30 minutes down the road, B has to eat. Carol insists we grab fast food and eat in the car. I know what will happen next, but my OxyContin has kicked in by then. And I just don't care. Sure enough, before we were out of the parking lot, B has spilled a 2-quart cup of Coke on the floor and says he's sure glad the lid was on and it didn't spill. I glance back to see his size 14 boots swimming in inches of brown liquid. I point this out.
That's okay, honey. It won't ruin these boots.
I toss a towel back. In the next instant, the Coke Carol has set on the console spills on my new purse. Of course it does. Hours later, we're in Fort Worth, trying to find a motel in the dark, with B helpfully shouting nonsensical directions from the back seat as we maneuver through traffic. B's room is on the 2nd floor. There is no elevator. Carol drags his suitcase in and sets it up. It's wrong, so it must be set up again. She collapses in her room and disappears for the night. I discover that every room but ours has a microwave, refrigerator, and coffee maker. I guess it's because it's a handicap room. Yeah, that makes sense. I also collapsed for the night. There is a reason I opted not to have children. The rest of the weekend reminds me of this. From Thursday through Sunday, I see Exie maybe all of 15 minutes. The majority of the time is spent babysitting B. B asks us to phone him when he'd like to get up. We discover the room phone rings 3 times and kicks over to voicemail. Without his hearing aids, he never hears it, or the incessant knocking on his door. After arriving late to the cocktail reception at the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, he mumbled something about a plumbing problem. I've had just about all I can take. Exie and the sponsors decide the best thing to do is scratch Othello from being shown. A local vet must write up a certificate for him after he's adopted. All this guy needed to do was stand outside the stall, write down his freeze brand, and hand Exie the certificate. Even though Exie explained how dangerous Othello was, the vet goes into the stall and yanks his mouth open. So Othello did the only thing he could, kick the crap out of him. Then he broke out of the stall, and scattered spectators in the aisles until Exie wrestled him back inside. Throughout the weekend, until he managed to load Othello into the trailer that would carry him west, Exie continued juggling calls from B's banker, then running into the stands to ask B if such and such a charge was legitimate. Finally, it was all over. The trip had been snake bit from the start. But as we watched B safely board the plane, and he turned, saying with a smile how much fun he had, I thought back to Exie's philosophy of dealing with the wild ones. He doesn't do anything. He just lets them be.